history of that relationship is not something American school children hear much about. It is a relationship that evolved out of a practice that we would prefer to forget, the immoral and inhuman practice of slavery. Freed slaves from the United States came to the shores of West Africa, many under the auspices of the American Colonization Society, a private group whose motives were highly questionable. Many died because they were not prepared for life on the African continent in the 1800s. When those who survived asked for sovereign recognition, the United States initially turned them down. Liberia is a complex nation whose citizens are both indigenous to the region and descendants of freed slaves. We know well what slavery did to people. It forced human beings not only to give up their freedom, but also their family, their ethnic identity, their language, and their culture. Imagine then the impact of imposing these lost generations on others as colonialists. The contemporary history of Liberia is one of strife created by these ethnic and class divisions. Liberia's presidents often governed with a poisonous combination of paternalism and authoritarianism. Poverty, exploitation, and bad leaders eventually produced the horrible civil war in the 1990s. 14 years of death and destruction. 14 years of child soldiers and maniacal leaders who used violence to embellish their personal power. Throughout much of this period, during the worst times, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf held out hope. She held out hope that her people would see the light and perhaps in their exhaustion, try a different way. She held out hope that the United States would feel some obligation to step in and stop the conflict. She held out hope that she herself could lead her nation to peace and prosperity. I knew her during this very sad period. She was doing her best to help Africa at the UN Development Program. Later, we traveled on a UNDP mission to the Democratic Republic of Congo. I told her at the time that I could not understand why someone who was leading such a relatively peaceful life would want to be president of such a troubled nation. She said simply, because we deserve better. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's father was the son of a Gola chief. She was part of indigenous Liberia. By her own testimony, she had a happy childhood. As in many developing countries, it ended too soon. Married at the age of 17, she had 4 children. Yet she knew in her heart that much more was expected of her. She had been reminded often of the words her grandfather spoke when he first saw her as a newborn. This child will be great. Her break came when her husband was given a scholarship to attend the University of Wisconsin. She went with him and was able to go to college in Madison, Wisconsin. President Sirleaf's life story is recounted in a wonderful new autobiography that has just been released. I strongly recommend it to all of you. It is the story of a woman who breaks the shackles of poverty, an abusive and confining marriage, and the prejudice of place and race to fulfill her God-given potential. Education, as always, was the key. Her invitation in 1970 to attend our sister public affairs school, the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, enabled her to hone her natural leadership skills and placed her on a path that led to the presidency of her country. Madam President, your story is an inspiration. Liberia is today a nation with more hope than ever, but there are still difficult challenges ahead as you face the global financial crisis. I want our audience to understand that serving as president of Liberia takes great courage and fortitude. We have many Liberians here today from the diaspora who understand this well, but others may not. Yours is a story that Americans need to hear. For your leadership is a product of higher education, your own desire to receive it, and your natural talent. Your country's problems should be seen, at least in part, as America's problems, for we have a very special relationship. At this time of global crisis, we need to step up and provide you with the margin you need to succeed, for you are much too good to fail. Madam President, you have recreated a democratic republic in Liberia. You have brought hope back to your people. You have inspired Africans and Americans alike, and you have demonstrated to people all over the world even in the most difficult circumstances, a woman can lead effectively. For all these reasons and more, Madam President, we are honored that you will receive the University of Minnesota's Honorary Doctor of Laws degree. Now, if I could ask everyone to stand for the Liberian National Anthem.